Our next storyteller is wicked smart and crazy fun. In 2020, Cynthia Berryman Fink published her memoir, Beware of Hanging Icicles, Tales of a New England Girl, which included 20 stories from her early years in Massachusetts. She told stories as stories on Asheville's front porch, the Weaverville Community Center, and on the podcast with me, In Love with the Fix. And you'll hear the rest of that in a second. Cindy is an esteemed academic, retired. After 31 years, she taught at the University of Cincinnati in communication, and she specialized in family communication and male-female communication.
Mars and Venus, baby.
Okay, Maestro, hit it. And there's the real Cindy Berryman Fink.
Really?
If you want to compare that,
Oh no! Oh
there's her 12-page CV. This is the bold. That's the real.
No wonder he wouldn't let me hear his introduction of me. That photo, I have 12 photos of me on haystacks. I love my haystack photos. Thank you, Chuck. I have a confession to make. I'm a crazy pet lover. Well, I'm not a lover of crazy pets, but I'm a crazy lover of all pets. And it started in my childhood with my first dog, Mike. We lived in Fall River, Massachusetts, a blue-collar textile city. My father worked in the mills. I'm a mill daughter also. He started working in the mills at age 13 in 1919. Anyway, I lived in Fall River, Massachusetts, in the second floor of a 3-level building we called a tenement house. And one day, Mom came home carrying a cardboard box, and something was moving inside. She had brought home a puppy for me.
Oh.
It was small, and it had long, black, shiny fur. I named him Mike. And I spent a lot of time with Mike. He would sit in my lap. I would brush him. I would pet him. I would play with him. Well, this was the 1950s. And this was well before dogs had their own clothing, rooms, chiropractors. You may recall that dogs would roam the neighborhood at will. So in that first year of having Mike, Mike didn't come home. Mike disappeared. I'm 7 years old. I'm walking the streets of Fall River, Massachusetts, yelling, Mike, Mike, where are you? Mike, please come home. No, Mike. Then there was the time, not too much longer later, that I overheard my father, who was reading a newspaper, and he says to my mother, it says here in the paper that dog snatchers are grabbing dogs to sell to Harvard Medical School. That must be what happened to the dog. Well, he never knew I overheard that, but I literally had nightmares of Mike alive and strapped to a table while white-coated scientists were working on him. So I learned at a young age 7, that being a crazy pet lover can bring pain as well as joy. Then a couple of years later, we moved next door to the beautiful town of Westport, Massachusetts. And we had a white farmhouse and about an acre of land. And there was an empty field next to us. And one day in the field, a black Angus bull appeared. He was big and scary looking. I ran into the house saying, Mom, Dad, there's this bull in the field next door. You got to come see him. So they come out and they look over at that New England stone wall and they say, don't go near him. He is dangerous and he could kill you. Well, we had learned that the bull was a 4-H project for Russell Vincelette, a teenager that lived on the road. But here I am, 10 years old, a crazy pet lover, I had a new friend. I named him Harry. He was 1,200 pounds, black, and he would just basically walk around the field all day with his head down, munching grass. I would pick leaves from the tree in our yard and sit on the wall and say, Harry, Harry, I got some yummy leaves for you. And then shortly after starting that, Harry would run to the side of the wall near my house as soon as I came out of the house. And he would eat the leaves out of my hand. His big slimy tongue would graze my hand and leave it all wet. And I loved looking into his big, big black eyes with big, thick eyelashes. And he would let me scratch him behind his ear, and he would lean into it when I would scratch. Well, one day, Harry disappeared.
Oh, no.
And I'm calling, Harry, Harry, looking for Harry. No, Harry. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Vincelette comes to our house with 2 pounds of ground beef. My parents make burgers. They're eating the burgers. They weren't mean people. They were just practical people. It's free ground beef, you know. They're eating the burgers going, oh, this is so delicious. Best ground beef we've ever had. You can't buy this at the A&P. And I'm quietly sobbing or tearing into my bowl of Chef Boyardee's SpaghettiOs. So I learned not to make pets of the livestock. Now let's fast forward to the 31 years that I lived in Cincinnati, married to Chuck. Yeah, 31, actually, I was there 31 years. We've been married 45 years next month. Thank you, thank you. And we raised 2 sons there in Cincinnati. And we had lots of dogs and cats. The first dog that we had together was Chuck's very first dog ever at age 30, a brown and white pit bull mix that he named Pita, P-I-T-A, for pain in the ass. Now, Pita's claim to fame was her strength and her determination. We would tie her to a small tree in our yard. That's when you could tie dogs up in your yard. And we'd go to work. We'd come home at the end of the day, and there would be Pita running through the neighborhood, dragging that small uprooted tree behind her. We learned to no longer tie her to small trees. And then we also had a black Labrador retriever named Bubba. And one time we were at a lake in Kentucky, and Bubba was swimming, and Bubba swam around the corner, was gone for the longest time. We were getting worried. And after a while, Bubba came back pushing with her nose a floating telephone pole as a gift for us. You gotta love black labs. So during this time in Cincinnati, as Chuck said, I was working as a college professor. And Chuck and I decided to retire young. I was 56 and he was 58, and we decided to move to Asheville from Cincinnati. And when I saw what a crazy pet-loving area Asheville is, I created a website. I printed up business cards. I bought a case of those thin blue doggy poop bags. And I was in business with pet care extraordinaire. Now I was no longer donning skirted suits and wearing high heels and putting on mascara and lipstick, no longer lecturing to freshmen or grading student papers. Instead, I was having so much fun. I was running through open fields with dogs, getting lavish with puppy kisses, sitting with purring cats in my lap, sleeping on a cold winter night with a hound dog, up against me. I was really, really loving pet care, and I'm still doing some pet care. So I've had this pet care business for 16 years, but just like with Mike and hairy. There have been some catastrophes. The first problem was Izzy. I go to meet the clients and get my instructions, and a little boy about 6 years old opens the door and leads me to a glass cage in the living room, and he says, this is Izzy, and he's from Mexico, and he's 12 years old. There in this glass case is a scaly, skinned, greenish, brownish iguana, about 4 feet long, big oversized head to the tip of his tail, and he had these comb-like spikes running down his back, and an eye on either, big eye on either side of his head, and razor sharp-looking teeth. So the mom said all I'd have to do is come every other day and feed Iggy a dozen live crickets in this little 1/8 of a cup measuring cup. She kept the crickets in a mason jar on the kitchen counter, and in every visit I was to grab some of this chow, this cricket chow, sort of a mealy wheat bran looking stuff, and put it in the jar so the crickets could eat it and multiply, and there'd be plenty of crickets for me to feed Iggy for the week. A piece of cake. He was ugly, and I wasn't big on reptiles, but how hard could this be? This sounded pretty easy. So I go on my first day, and I go in the kitchen, I grab the mason jar, I take the lid off, I set it down, and I turn around to find that 1/8 of a cup measuring cup to feed him his crickets. Well, all the crickets have jumped out of the jar. Within seconds, they are gone. They are everywhere. They're on the couch, they're on the rug, they're climbing the walls, they're on the chairs. Oh my God, what do I do? I grab a coffee mug from the kitchen and I go around the house picking up as many crickets as I could, putting them in the jar, putting a little meal in there. And I took out the 12 crickets for Iggy, the 1/8 of a cup of crickets I had to give him. But he hasn't eaten in 2 days now, and he sees crickets everywhere. He hears crickets. I mean, the noise was deafening. It's almost like a recent cicadas, only on steroids. You know, he is excited. He's banging himself against the glass. He's going up and down, left and right. He is hungry, and he sees crickets. Well, I feed him his 12 crickets, and I finish my work for the rest of the week. And every time I come, and I'm sure when the people came home at the end of the week, they would hear this faint, far-off sound of crickets, probably for the rest of their lives. The second difficulty, catastrophe, was with Big Louie. I walked Big Louie 5 days a week at midday while his pet parents worked. Now, Big Louie was appropriately named. He was a bull mastiff, 140 pounds. I weigh 118. But bull mastiffs go kind of slow. They're kind of walk in slow motion. He was big. I mean, he was tall. When he would stand, his head would almost come up to my shoulders. But I could walk him on a harness, and as I would walk him through the neighborhood in North Asheville, I would scan the distance to see if there was a squirrel or a bird or a cat or something out there. And if I saw a critter, I would make Big Louie sit, face me, and I'd give him a treat. Well, very soon after that, he became more motivated by the treats than he did by seeing critters. So and that worked well for many, many, many years. Until one day, I take Big Louie out, and he starts sniffing the air. He's sniffing the air. I don't know what that's about. We go around the corner, and there are 3 bear cubs right there in front of us. I jump on Big Louie. I wrestle him down to the ground. The leash is around my arm. I'm holding him down. The bear cubs run off. But as they run off, he drags me across the sidewalk and the road, and I am cut up. I am scraped up. I am bleeding. I drag him home. And that was the very last that I ever walked Big Louie. I know, I miss Big Louie. Then there was the situation with, I'll say, Sweet Maria's 3 cats. When I went for my instructions, she said this cat in the bedroom, I just caught a glimpse of him under the bed, was Pablo. He was a feral cat that she had just lured into the house. And all I had to do was put a little food in the bedroom, scoop the litter box in the bedroom, keep the door closed. That should be easy enough. The second cat was Billy. He was old. All his ribs were showing. He was missing most of his fur. He could barely walk. She said I have to liquefy his food because he didn't have any teeth and he couldn't chew anything. He just would lick up the food. And she told me that Billy had cancer and may not live the week of my care. Fun part of having pet care, right? She left a permission to euthanize letter in case I had to go to the veterinarian, and Billy took a turn for the worse. Then the third cat was a young kitten, a ragdoll cat, Mr. Wiggles. And when I met him for the first time, he was chasing a laser pointer around the room. So I come every day, and whenever I would arrive, Mr. Wiggles would meet me at the door. Oh, I'm so happy you're here. Let's play, let's play. And I'd liquefy Billy's food, and he'd lap it up and then just nap and go to sleep. And I'd put the food in the bedroom for Pablo. And it's my last day. Billy has lasted the whole week, barely. He's not in good shape, but this is my last visit. But just as I'm about to leave the house, I decide to sit down on the floor and coax Mr. Wiggles into my lap one more time to pet him and play with him. And I'm doing that, and all is well, and he starts coughing and wheezing. He has a seizure, and his four limbs are in the air, and he falls over and rolls down dead on the floor. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I start crying. What do I do? I don't know what to do. I go in the bathroom and I grab a turquoise towel and I carefully wrap Mr. Wiggles in the towel and I carry him out and put him in the trunk of my car. And I drive home very, very slowly so he won't roll around back there, you know. And I get home, I'm still crying, but I compose myself and I call Maria. I say, Maria, I can't believe what just happened. Billy lived, but Mr. Wiggles just died in my lap. I can't believe it. There's a long silence on the phone. And then she says, oh, Cindy, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Bless your heart. Will you do me a favor? Will you put Mr. Wiggles in the freezer so that when I come home, I can have a ceremony with my friends and burying him in the backyard? I say, okay. I hang up the phone, put Mr. Wiggles in the freezer. I turn to Chuck, who hates that, well, not anymore, but hates that I had a pet care business, wanted no part of my pet care business, was embarrassed that I used to teach for a living and now I pick up dog shit. I say, Chuck, I can't do it. Can you do it? And like any good husband, he says, yes, dear. So we drive back to Maria's. Mr. Wiggles is still in the trunk of the car. Chuck carefully picks him up, carries him to the kitchen, unwraps him from the towel. He's about ready to put him in the freezer. I say, no, not like that. You got to put his head on his paws. You got to wrap his tail around him. You got to make him look peaceful, this classic sleeping cat pose. So he does that. He makes room between the blueberries and the green beans and puts him in the freezer. Now, you've heard some of the disasters. I probably shouldn't be saying this because I have some pet care clients here tonight. Not anymore. These disasters are few and far between. I've cared for hundreds and hundreds of animals. I've cared for dogs and cats, of course, horses, cows, chickens, and I got to keep the eggs with the chickens, rabbits, any kind, goldfish, parrots, all kind of animals. And there's been no problems whatsoever. It's been wonderful. It's been fun. I love it. And I love our scruffy dog, Rooney. And I'm really quite happy that I no longer, for a living, grade master's theses, but I pick up dog feces. Thank you.
Thank you all. Cindy, thank you. Just want to share with you, before we left, there was a going away party for Cindy at the University of Cincinnati, which is not a small school. I think there's like 49,000 students. So at this party, I'm standing next to the president of the university, Nancy Zimfer. And when Cindy said she's going to be doing doggy daycare, Dr. Zimfer leaned over and said, so she's going to be dealing with a higher breed of animals. Oh, thank you, Cindy.